Hi guys and gals, welcome to part 4 of the DX7 SE heli setup guide. Okay, now we've done everything else, so what we're going to do, as I promised, is set up your dual rates and expos. Basically, expo, I'll just go into dual rates. We'll start with dual rates. Dual rates is, if you can imagine a servo going from like its maximum range from end to end. If you've got 100% limit on your radio, your dual rate will be 100%. Now, if you want to reduce that motion by an even amount on both sides, you can reduce that in a percentage of 5%, 10%, whatever you like. Now, what this will do to make sense is, if you are a new pilot and you are flying a helicopter and you want to have your aileron and elevator for your swash, so that the swash isn't going all the way to its full range, because if it does that, you're going to be able to do like some pretty full-on flying. So if you want to tame it down a bit so that the actual swash is not going as far as you'd like it to, so you can actually control it a little bit easier, and it doesn't, a bigger movement doesn't make the swash move like 50,000 millimeters sort of thing. Then what you do is you reduce the DR rate to actually get that down, and instead of going into the swash menu and adjusting the aileron and elevator in the swash menu, you set that up for your maximum of when you get better. You can just adjust the dual rates back up to where you want it to be. And just to point on that, your aileron and your elevator should be done together. So whatever percentage you've got on one should be on the other, so that you get an even movement of the ratio of movement on the servos in both directions. Because if you get it different, you're going to have either too much control on the aileron or elevator, whichever one has got the highest amount of dual rate. So for you new guys, here's what I suggest you do. We've got our setup here on the transmitter, so I'm going to go into the actual main menu. So I'm going to hold down select and the up button, and that gets into the whole menu range so you can see what you're going to be going for. So we'll hold that down. So we want to go into dual rate and expo. So now we hold down select and the down arrow. Okay. Oh, it looks like I've already been mucking around with this. So basically, for the aileron, set your dual rate for the aileron and elevator. Set your dual rates to 70% to start with. So that should reduce it quite a bit on your actual swash movement. If it's still too much movement for you guys, and you don't feel comfortable, reduce it down to 60, 65. But make sure you match the aileron with the elevator. Okay. Now, while we're here, we're going to go into and leave the. I like to leave the rudder alone. If you want to slow down the spin rate, you can actually reduce the dual rate to reduce the distance that your tail slider will move. Okay, don't do it through your limits, because once you've got it all, your heli all set up to optimum flying conditions, like for an experienced pilot, you just leave them alone, and you can change your dual rates and your expos to get to where your skill level is, and then just adjust those dual rates back towards 100%. No more. You don't want to go any more, not for helicopters anyway. And that's pretty much that. Leave your expo alone for your rudder. I'm going to go into what expo is now. So as you can see, I've got this. I'm going to move into the expo. So starting off, if you're a new pilot, you want to set your expo on your elevator at 30%, 30 to 35%, depending on how unstable your hand is, basically. So I'm going to go back into the aileron and change that up to 30%. So match it. Okay, so both of them should match. And what the exponential does is, I'll just show you the cyclic stick here. What that does is, if you don't have any, if you have zero expo, basically any little movement here around the cyclic, which is pretty much around this area here, is where you're doing your hovering. You know, very, very, very small corrective movements, and you're always going back into the center, you know, so you might just do a small one back to center, small one back to center, you know, just to counter correct to get it to hover properly. Now, if you're new, you're going to be kind of like driving a car, whereas you go to turn a corner and you're not experienced, you're going to you're either not going to turn hard enough, and then you get halfway around and you go, oh, I've got to grab some more steering wheel, or you're going to go the opposite. You've gone too hard and you've got to back off out to get around the corner. Same thing applies with helicopters, funnily enough, and planes, and actually real helicopters and real planes. But anyway, so what the exponential does is it actually slows the higher the percentage here in the expo, if that's up around 30%, it means that you've got about 30%. So from here 0, and that's 100%, like full movement in each direction. Now 0, 100, 0, 100, 0, 100. Okay, now what that 30% means is that you've got 30% of that 100%. It's going to slowly move the servo in a small amount. Now, if you just have that on 0, you've just got a linear curve. You're going to have a linear amount of movement going all the way across from here to here. But from here, you'll have a little bit of movement, it will slowly be getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and as you start coming out here, you're getting a lot of movement on your servo. So what that does is it kind of like stabilizes when you've got shaky hands. It simulates having shaky hands, and you might be nervous, which I get, and I run mine at 20 anyway. So, and that's just because when I get the adrenaline rush, my hands start shaking a little bit, and you can see if you've got 0 expo, you'll be able to see that in a good set of servos on cyclics. You'll be able to see that actual helicopter trembling just like you are. Okay, so what it does, it kind of takes a tremble out of it, and it makes it a lot easier. So, you know, if you move a little bit too far, it's not going to be so aggressive and actually come flying back towards you, because that movement there will fly straight back towards you in a non-expo setup. So I hope that kind of makes sense, and that's pretty much all you need to set up there. And then as you get better, you reduce the expo, like for me, and I wouldn't say I'm an extremely experienced pilot. I run mine at 20, but that's what I'm comfortable with. So whatever you're comfortable with, and make sure you go back into your elevator and reduce that also to match. Same with your dual rate. So as you get better, you'll start increasing your dual rate back up towards 100 and lots of 5% until you feel comfortable of what you're trying to achieve. And to slow your tail down, like I said, you go into the rudder and take some off the 100% for your dual rates. So if you have any questions, just pop them down here, and I'll be glad to answer them. Thanks for tuning in, and that's pretty much the final setup on this series for the DX70C. So as I said, it does translate into any helicopter, a CCPM helicopter. I didn't go into flybarless setup because the basics are the same. You still level your swash, you still do all the other bits and pieces. It's just a different way of getting into the. You basically need to set it up depending on. It just depends on each manufacturer's 3-axis gyro. Okay, so thanks for tuning in. I'm not going to overcomplicate it because those are the basics, and you'll definitely have a stable helicopter if you follow these to after the letter. One other thing, you can have a bit of a play with the throttle curve in normal mode if you're new. I just didn't mention this in the let's get into it. Okay, throttle curve. Okay, what you can do is reduce this down to 60, say, and then just do points 2, 75, 3, 75 and high 75. And what that will do, that should stop a lot of bobbing, you know, the helicopter bobbing up and down, because you've got a more stable rev range basically. It's kind of like putting a block under the accelerator pedal, and you get to so far, and it's not going to go too hard out. So that should give you a reasonably stable. You might have to play with the 0.1, so 60%. You might want to move it down to 55 or 50, and just have a play with that, because it just depends on your ESC really. So I hope that helps you guys, and if you have any questions on any of these things, just give us a holler, and I'll be glad to help you out. Okay, cheers.